Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Wow. I'm excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here's a quote just for this episode. If I can be optimistic when I'm nearly dead, surely the rest of you can handle a little inflation. Charlie Munger. Our guest today is the perfect person to have on the show because as of this recording, our dear idol of the Culture Matters podcast, Charlie Munger, has graduated to the eternal. For those less apt, he's dead. One of my heroes and another one of my living heroes who I had the pleasure of meeting the last few years, working alongside of, learning from through osmosis and interaction. Um, a mentor, a teacher, a student, a director, an actor. Wow. Michael Allosso is back. Perfect person for me to talk to right now after finding out that Charlie is no longer with us. I cried for about 10 minutes, which means I have a lot more crying to do. And I just had to pick that quote, right? If I could be optimistic when nearly dead, surely the rest of you can handle a little inflation. Thanks for coming on and cheer me up. Just, thank you.
Well, the team is made of pitchers and batters. It's not just stats. Culture matters. Hello, Jay Doran.
I love that.
Yeah, I'm sorry about your loss. And I love the quote you picked. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Because we're Jay, your audience knows this. I didn't know that quote you were going to pick. Uh, like I'm hearing it for the first time right now and just goes right in my soul. Because what I've been the last month or so, I've been really taken by the whole Gaza Strip
Oh,
and by the world right now is in knots. And so I feel like my mission is more important now than ever. And what I'm hearing people say is that I'm a nobody. What I'm going to do doesn't matter. It's like these are big things. And so what the the quote you picked is about little things.
hmm.
You have two choices. You can say, oh, these little things don't matter, or you can do what John Kabat-Zinn said that we discussed in the past. The little things, the little moments, they're not so little. And so if each time we meet, even if we come up with a couple of little things that we all can do to make the world a better place, wow, we're getting closer to where we need to be. And so I'm very moved by you, by your introduction, by the loss. It's Yeah, wow,
Do you ever think about how you'll be remembered by your students?
all the time.
Wow.
And so remember, I'm older than you, and which I know is hard to
Couple
believe,
years.
Jay, just
Yeah.
a couple. And so what happens is you get close to death. That's again why I like the quote. In my keynote, I usually say, when I make comments about how to make people feel valued, I say, well, someone my age, you can make me feel unvalued. I might stay. Where else am I going to go? I'm so close to death. And people go, oh, how can you say
Yeah,
that?
I
Well,
just did it.
right, did it? I am closer to death. And so you do, as you get closer to death than you are to birth, think about legacy much, much more. And so it's secret weapon 35. Hey, everybody, remember I have these 35 secret weapons help you be you on your best day. Number 35 is people should be better off as a result of having spent time with you, which is my super objective. What I want on my tombstone, Jay, my legacy is that at my livogy or my eulogy, I want people to have stories about, I want the Uber driver to speak and say, this dude made me better. By the time he got out of the car, I was a better person because I talked to him. And I want my family to feel that way. I want you to feel that way. I want all our clients to feel that way. And I want your
Wow.
listeners to feel that way.
Would you have a livogy? Is that what I think it is? Is that what you
Yeah.
put together? And
Yeah. It's Peggy and I have been discussing this and Peggy's older than me.
wow.
So she doesn't know this. I hope she doesn't listen. But at her next milestone birthday, I'm going to do a livogy. I want to, I just want to get a bunch of people together and let them say or sing or rap, whatever they want to do. And then I'm going to create a venue where she can sing, where she can give her concert. So instead
Wow.
of my playing recordings of her voice, if I outlive her, and I know for your younger listeners, this may sound morbid, but again, if I keep going back to the Gaza Strip, I mean, those people weren't my age, and they're no longer with us.
Hmm.
And so it's like we're all here for a moment. And so a liturgy is giving truthful, specific, positive feedback while someone's alive
Is that
rather
what it
than
is?
afterwards. Yeah. So that we all get together. Jenna has a party and
Wow.
says, we're going to do a liturgy of Jay. And I stand up and I say what I would have said at your eulogy if, God forbid, you were taken today
Wow.
and Jenna invited me to speak. The words I would say now to your face so that you could appreciate it and know the level of my love and the specificity of my love and respect. It's a little thing, but it's a big thing.
Why don't people do that more often? Or
Yeah,
do
because
they? And I'm just completely out of this
no, they don't, Jay. We're all in a freaking hurry. And instead, I'm cleaning a closet, making lists for Christmas and Hanukkah, and, you know, um, writing a proposal, writing a LinkedIn article because my team wants me to do that,
Hmm.
reading things that my clients send me, and all that, not to diminish any of that, all that's very important. And I got to figure out, and why aren't we getting together? And so at holidays, Jay, I try to do it. So at Thanksgiving, I did it.
Good.
I did a liturgy about my kid brother who hosted it. It was a mini liturgy, and you could argue, well, it was part of grace. It wasn't as formal as it could have been, but okay, it was a little one.
I'd like to know so your feedback on this. I was at a funeral recent few years, and no one said anything about the person. It really bothered me. Is that me, you think, or is that just kind of out of touch with what the value in your estimation is of a funeral? Meaning,
Yeah,
I participated in this, and no one said anything about the person.
yeah.
I just
No, I don't think that's you. It's a ladder. You know, I'm
It
I'm
really bothered
married.
me. I wanted to
Yeah,
say
it should.
something. I
It
wanted
should
to
have
say
bothered you.
something, but I was I didn't want to make it all about me. So I did nothing, and now I just have I don't know, just have regret.
That's the hard part. I've married 10 couples in my day, and two of
Wow.
the brides that I married are sisters, and their aunt died recently. And they sang at her funeral. And they actually were feeling the same thing as you because they both have gorgeous voices. Were they using the premise of their aunt's funeral to do a performance for them to get accolades? It's a hard thing. And they said,
Wow.
no, we love her. This is our gift. Let's give it to her. So they invested in the lyric. Man, wasn't a dry eye in the house. They are beautiful singers. No, I don't think it's just you. I think that you put an edit on yourself that you didn't need to, because the world needs more Jay Doran. Everybody needs more Jay Doran. And so I would say to you as your friend, never edit, because I like it when you say things that you don't put through the colander at me. I learn as much from that as the things that you prepared in your pretty bound books.
I guess you would say that I kept my groin at that funeral.
You you didn't go to
Anyone that hasn't heard our most recent episode, please get a life and clearly start with that. There's a little more groin. I'd like to actually go to something that you had mentioned before, before we go to all the secret weapons, because wow, whenever I talk to you, there's more thoughts. Tip O'Neill, Ronald Reagan relationship that came up before we hit the recording here.
Yeah.
I mentioned Charlie Munger, one of my idols, having now graduated to, fighting the galactic war against who knows who. That's what I imagine happens after. But Tip O'Neill, Ronald Reagan.
Well,
What
why I
was the
said that,
relationship?
brother? Well, brother Jay, it's like you right before we went to record, you sent me this beautiful Charlie Munger piece on Bloomberg.com, and it's what the caption was. Munger could say to Buffett, "You're not thinking straight." And I thought, how blessed
Wow.
was Buffett to have a Munger in his life? And it made me think of I directed this one man show about Tip O'Neill. And in order to do that, I had to do some research about Tip O'Neill. And a lot of my research told me how he and Ronald Reagan were buddies. And they'd meet in Reagan's office pretty regularly, smoking cigars and drinking and hashing out things. And
Hmm.
they clearly loved one another and respected one another. And they were politically opposite. And yet, Reagan, to his credit, had Tip to tell him, Mr. President, that you're missing half your population. And need I say that Reagan won both of his elections by a hefty number of votes? So there's something about opening your ears and
Hmm.
listening to the people around you that some of our contemporary political figures do not do. And so what I was fretting with you, Jay, about is this a thing of the past
Yeah.
where a president would invite people who disagree with him into his or her office and hash it out? Are we never going to see that again, or what?
Oh, I have a because so you advise so many, for example, one of the top Vistage speakers in the country. What is Vistage? CEOs participate in that to get information, to get insight, to essentially choose various advisors to help them. The leaders that operate companies that don't create that, what are they missing out? Right? That team of people to give them unadulterated feedback.
Sometimes they crank out a lot of widgets. I can't lie, some of those are successful, but they have little regard for people. And so
Mm.
if we talk about culture matters, there would be examples of culture doesn't matter. That the CEO absolutely says, I don't really care about culture. And often what that CEO brings in are hourly employees or even salaried employees who behave like hourly employees. That's what I find in my sample. And
Wow.
then the people who do bring in those folks and say, you know what, that idea is great. I can't work it in right now. I love that you gave it to me. Let's keep it hot on the burner and let's see what versions of it we can do. Well, someone feels seen and heard. Jay, I probably told you this before. Sometimes when I run out the door after I do a keynote or a workshop because I'm catching a plane or I have to do a double header, and I don't have the luxury of listening to takeaways, which is so nurturing of the soul, the leader, to be generous to me, will say, hey, please tell Michael one thing as he's running out the door. And the most dominant thing I've heard in those settings is, I felt seen and heard today.
Mm.
Now, Jay, the first time someone said that to me, I said, wow, that's the best you can say about me is that I have eyes and ears. It's not really that laudatory, is it? But then I thought about it, Jay. What does that imply? In general, how do people feel in the workplace? Unseen
Unseen.
and unheard. Because the CEO isn't listening to their idea, doesn't embrace that with them. So, yeah, I think we're on to something there. And maybe that's a little thing, but it's a big thing.
Speaking. How much does speaking before a crowd add or detract to a person? And I say
People,
person like
yeah,
a person in position of leadership, or you're desiring to be accountable for others. And the
which,
reason I bring distract is I want to at least be devil, you know, have some contrast. I don't want to lead the question, right?
but
Are there detractions? Are there
which is
additions?
one of your gifts, but you did
Thanks.
because look what you said. You used the word that I was going to use, accountability. So if that leader has to speak before the group, now you're accountable.
Yeah.
Now I've said it in front of a group of people who are going to quote me. I had a client right before you. He's CEO of a paint company in Rhode Island. I coached him to do a keynote in San Antonio for a bunch of leaders in the industry 2 years ago. He attended a conference last month. 6 people came up to him and quoted him directly. It was something he said.
Wow.
It's if you read it in the paper, then it's true. It's that old adage that our parents and grandparents would say, it has been spoken, now that is your truth. And so you are held to a higher degree of accountability when you speak in front of people. That's why I encourage my leaders to do public speaking.
What are some ways to fudge for our listeners that have curiosity around stepping before the crowd? Some ways that the lay person could fudge it up real bad without even thinking twice about it.
Yeah.
They
So
haven't.
if you're, what a, you guys, Jay asked the best questions.
Hey,
Jay
I'm here
Doran.
all night. I'm here all night.
Oh, Jay Doran.
Easy
No,
with
like
you.
I'm trying to think if anyone's ever asked me that question before.
What are these
I
people
feel like
doing?
I know no one's asked that. So here's how you fudge it. So can you define fudge? It's how you define it for me.
Um, it's funny. I got a picture in my mind like poop, but that's not what I meant. Maybe some things I shouldn't say out loud. Fudge up, right? Like
Screw
muck it
up.
up, undermine.
Yeah,
Let's say, yeah, like the subtle negation without even being aware.
I love you.
I've already set myself back -10, and I was at +2 without opening my mouth.
Yeah, outstanding.
Yeah.
To me, the biggest pitfall is when they don't say an objective out loud because structure frees creativity. It's a sonnet has how many lines? It has X amount of lines, so that's how you know how to write a sonnet. So where I think the big downfall is when the speaker does not precisely state an objective. They do not have the guidelines, and so they stray off the road. They haven't created a map. And when they stray off the road, that's when they screw up. That's when they screw up and say things that are regrettable. Because you
Mm.
need to put a little objective meter on your shoulder that says, what's your objective? Why are you saying this? Is it to make everyone in the room annoyed? Is it to make them work harder when they leave here? Is it for them to embrace one of our core values the most? So I find that that is a major problem. And inherent with that, structurally, because Jay, I'm so boring. I'm all about structure. To me, it's all about structure. So if they have not prepared a hot opening and a hot close, and they leave those 2 moments to whatever their little mouth and brain together come up with, that's when
Mm.
I see mistakes happen.
Is part of that because there's a relationship with emotion and the emotion can take over? The
Yes.
reason I'm asking that is a scenario where if I don't have the open and I have a close, I haven't thought it through to a degree by which I'll have the emotional awareness to not go down some tangent.
Bingo. 2 days ago, one of my clients says, can you tell me the difference between self-awareness and emotional intelligence? And I said, of course I can. And then it's like I struggled.
Yeah, that's a
And
deep question.
well, right. It was too deep for me to just give a glib, flippant answer. And it was
Next time, just say Hegel. I'm just
next time
yes.
I would say Jay Doran.
Yeah,
Say, let me
Hegel
give you
or
Jay Duran's number. Because
hilarious.
that was like a Jay Duran question. And they are so deeply related. And I think you did nail it. What happens is that we lose our self-awareness and then we become emotionally involved rather than a goal oriented in thinking about where we want the ball to go. It becomes, you almost have to be an athlete of the voice, an
Mm.
athlete so that you're here plotting. It's like kicking a field goal, the precision with which your foot is going to hit that ball so it doesn't go to the left or right of the goalpost.
You think there's some connection with that and leaders' ability to listen and bring out and guide guide thought of their subordinates at some
Yes,
level. At some level.
yes, and add Jay in the moment. So remember, your word was accountability. So I'm now the leader and I have to speak before this group. Am I even watching what the faces in the room are doing? Am I feeling the gasps and the pulse? Am I seeing the smiles? Because where I could be saved from going errant on the map if I listen to my audience in the moment. So there's listening before I reach that point, and then there's listening in the moment. I call it secret weapon number 23, this sentence. People always ask me, what the heck does this sentence mean? It means right now, I have to live only in what Jay Doran just asked me. That nothing, I can't be thinking about, oh, wasn't I stupid that the way I answered the other question? And I can't be thinking about, oh my gosh, Bridie's over there and Peggy's not home. What if she barks? As soon as I think about the future or the past, I lose the power of this sentence.
Hmm.
And so when leaders work in this sentence, I can see you leaning toward the camera lens now. I can see you nod. And so I'm saying, all right, Jay's receiving this rather than see you look at your phone or look away or frown at me. And I see you smile, I see you laugh.
Do you have advice for our audience on when they're on the receiving end of that looking at the phone or that disconnect of how to re-engage the person without potentially creating more shame than they'd otherwise want?
Yeah. I always say when those things happen, it's my fault. If you look at your phone right now, it's my fault. I start there, that it's my fault. And so then I have to diversify my tactical portfolio.
Hmm.
I take it as a gift from the audience rather than anything that they're doing negatively.
Hmm.
And so rather than thinking about reprimanding the audience, I say to myself, thank you, audience member. And now what can I do to shift gears? Now you've given me a gift
Hmm.
by checking your phone. Maybe I've just been doing monologue the whole time and there needs to be more dialogue. Maybe I haven't been funny for a full 20 minutes. Maybe I'm now on minute 81 and someone has to go to the bathroom. You know, that it like a little thing like time, Jay. So, Jay, Actors Equity Association, the union which governs stage actors, when I'm directing a union play, at 55 minutes, the union stage manager will say to me, Michael, you have to take a 5. Now, Jay, if we're right in the middle of something or no, it's rude to do that or no one has to go to the bathroom, she'll give me some space and let me go. But then at 80 minutes, I have to give everybody a 10 or I have to pay everybody overtime.
Wow.
But every keynote speech I do, Jay, is between 55 and 80 minutes.
Let
If a
me get
client
this
wants to,
straight.
yeah,
That's subtly very powerful for listeners that want to bring people together, like a team meeting or a mastermind or a workshop. People need breaks, or you could create a whole lot of other conflicts without realizing. Am I on to something there? That's what I'm want to make
100%. See,
articulate that for
you
the
can't
audience.
do a 90-minute Zoom. None of us is that good. You can't do a 2-hour team meeting. None of us is that good. And it's arrogance to do that. And so when the person goes to the phone, maybe I have forgotten my 55 to 80 rule. And maybe I need to take a break. It's just like I start with generosity. Now I'm in a little better position because secret weapon number 2 is focus and concentration. So one way I approach that is to talk about it in that moment. If I have been giving appropriate breaks, if I have been diversifying my tactical portfolio, and I feel that this person is completely unaware that someone with less confidence than me, i.e., anybody in the front of the room, and you do that to them, that they could lose their mojo, then
Mm.
it's my responsibility to point that out. Now, I do that by using subjunctives rather than definitives, that someone may lose their mojo. Not because you went to your phone, you made me worse. Someone may read that as losing your mojo. And what I'm quick to refer to, Jay, is that micro messages are often lies. So, for example, you're leaning toward the camera, nodding at me right now.
Yeah. Think
You might have a twitch.
I'm plotting your demise.
Right, you're plotting my demise. I love that. That's awesome.
It's
So,
so fun. Yeah.
and, and
He's coughing now.
I'm coughing. Yeah, it's like you made me sick. So I I will always say that right afterwards. Now,
Interesting.
sometimes people don't even hear that right afterwards and they get angry and say, you accused me and I was really helping a needy person. I was texting a shelter. You know, that like people want to say all that. And I say, well, thank you. That's all wonderful. And could you have done it at minute 81 instead of minute 4? Would it have been as effective?
Is it a sign of respect or a sign of something else, or not a sign at all? If someone in the audience asked, or someone in a session asked, like to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, it's a fair question. I think that if you had to go to the bathroom within the limits of the 55 to 80 minutes, that you would do it in the most imperceivable way possible. That you would so no, I don't think it's respectful to say, may I go to the bathroom? I think people would laugh. I think it upstages the speaker. I would politely leave. It's again little things or big things.
What about in a one-on-one?
When I have to go to the bathroom in a one-on-one, then I just say, Jay, I have to go to the bathroom. I'm so sorry, dude. One-on-one has a sanctity in and of itself, and rules are different. Then it's all fair. Yeah, please let me go to the bathroom, and
Hmm.
then I make it as short as I can.
Go ahead, because I have another question
Well,
after.
even lateness, Jay, I want you to think
Yeah.
about.
Lateness, yeah.
I I always give grace to someone who's late. It's not for me to judge why someone's late. You know, I've been late. You've been late, and so I always give grace. I don't give grace to someone who is rudely late. So to someone who comes in and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm late," and then starts glad handing around the room, and then goes and gets coffee noisily, and then makes a big deal about where they're sitting. That I don't give grace to. So it's related to your bathroom question. You have to seamlessly be late. So my favorite people, Jay, are people who are late and seamlessly go to their seat and then answer my very next question or ask me a question within 3 seconds that isn't, I was late and I missed things, not that kind of question, but
Hmm.
something that relates immediately to what's going on. Love those people. And I always call them out for their excellence. It's a little thing, but it's
Why?
a big thing
Why?
because that micro message offers great dignity to another human being. And it's a much better way than saying, mea culpa, I was late. Instead of doing a negative thing, you do a positive thing to make up for your lateness. That's why I love it so much.
Hmm.
Or you say, I'm sorry when it's your turn. Say, oh, so sorry to be late, and then contribute. Don't
Hmm.
wallow in that. Everybody's, why make a big deal about little things? Now, if you're late every single time we do one of these, then I'll go groiny on you.
Off with your head.
Off with your head, Doran.
Where does shame fall in the spectrum of productivity in an organization?
You mean the Catholics like me?
Yeah.
Oh,
On the curve of
like we're always ashamed. We're always in deep shame and guilt.
and like, is there like how responsible are we as leaders within an organization of the levers of shame? Curious of your because yeah, I'm curious.
Well, it always goes back to the equation. What's your objective? And then how you're going to get what you want. So if your objective is to make someone on the team feel bad, then shame would be an appropriate tactic for that. If your objective is to raise their game and build them, I don't see how shame has a role in that tactical portfolio.
Hmm.
Did I misunderstand your
Well,
question, Jay?
no, I think when you ask it like that, it almost it shines such a bright light on these naturally deconstructive occurrences in life in work every day. You asked what's your objective? Is to create shame or to what did you how did you put it?
To repudiate, to destroy, to
Yeah, to hurt
punish,
someone.
to hurt someone. I mean, and
And I
some
think
people,
that most
yeah,
people would say
No.
No, that's not what I want to do. But that's what happens, Mike.
A few people answer yes, and then I say, okay, then you're successful. But then I'm not sure I want to work with them.
Mm.
Most of good people aren't trying to hurt another human being.
And yet
Now,
it happens. It
and yet
happens.
it
Yet it
happens.
happens. So how can we reconcile that or give some insights to our audience of how to avoid that if their heart is pure, but their behavior is riddled with impurity? And by the way, I
Yeah.
was starting to stutter there for a second. I was getting
Well,
excited.
I
All of a
like the
sudden, I'm a
stutter.
dog, you know?
Don't do that. She might bark. Like
Oh, oops.
so far, so good.
That's we're good. All of a sudden, I start. Wait, I love that foreshadow. Come on, hold on for that. You that if anyone listening still is listening to this, if anyone is still listening to this, you can replay and just see that foreshadow because I ended up barking, not the dog. It's like the perfect thing ever.
The
Tuesday.
dude who sold me this headset said, "Oh, it's noise canceling. If Bridie barks, no one will hear it." Liar, mentira, no
And
es
it's
verdad. Yeah.
so yeah.
So it's what I always find is if I get the leader to truly take a breath. So secret rule number 3 is breathing. So if I take a breath before I act, that requires that I know what my triggers are. So I know what my triggers are. Racism, sexism, homophobia, cruelty to animals. Like those, any one of those 4 things happen in a meeting, I know I'm prone to speak too quickly
Mm.
and I react. And my reaction could, in fact, hurt another human being, which is not my intention for me personally. So, what I find is when I take a breath and say, what is your objective? What is your desired result in this moment? So, a real example, I was speaking to a group of home builders in Alabama, and there was a guy to my left who'd been sitting in a disrespectful way through the whole thing. And everyone in the room was white, Jay, except for the administrative assistant, who was a black man. And I told a story about a woman named Jaquisha who really touched my soul. And the point of the story was I called her by her name and that she was stunned that I called her by her name and I pronounced it correctly. Well, he made kind of a nasty remark about her name that I felt had racist overtones. And I did not take a breath. And so I reacted.
Mm.
And what I did was I repudiated him. I became superior and I reacted and I said, how do you come off saying that? Do you understand how you come across? Now, Jay, do you think this guy was any less racist by the end of the meeting? Not only, he was probably more racist, probably categorized me as a Northeast liberal who thought he was holier than thou and like probably got worse. So I didn't stop to think.
I think I saw you on QAnon. Sorry, that was too easy. Walk through
Way
that
too
door.
easy. And
I
I
try to
was
be
in
more groiny when you're on.
well, I was in Dallas waiting for the whole Kennedy
No,
family to appear. Uh, oh, we just lost all our QAnon listenership.
no. They like me. Yeah. Yeah, they're evil. These are more like the Swiss ones. Switzerland here. You know, China did it, and you know, what else?
Did you
I
take your
don't. The
funny
moon,
pills?
the flag on the moon was waving. I
It's
don't. Anyway,
it's because you have a new haircut that you took your funny pills and like
yes,
you're
yes.
just like you're so
A lot
charming
of
tonight.
things, good things are happening.
Yeah,
Oh,
so the
yeah,
whole
I would
idea,
like to know because
avoid triggers. Avoid triggers. Take a breath.
so your point here is that you don't believe force revitalized, invigorated, exercised the ideology. It may have exacerbated or brought it out more.
Yeah, it's a qualified yes, Jay, because I do think in a tactical portfolio, my going right in your face and saying, Jay Doran, is that how you want to be remembered? Is that your legacy, brother? But the difference between my example and what I interpreted you to ask, my example still shows love for Jay Doran. And so I try a different tactic of love to make him firmly face and look in the mirror what he did. It's not to make him small, it's to make him big. And so I won't completely delete directness and 100% radical candor as a powerful tactic, but I think our examples have not been those. Our examples have been repudiation, diminishing. No one flourishes when they're made to feel small. It just, I don't have any examples of it.
Hmm.
And, you know, being a theater guy, theater programs generally spend the first year diminishing people, trying to make them feel small. Half the population leaves, and that's their point. They're trying to see who survives. I don't think that's valid anymore. I think that's kind of like an old school theory, and I don't see any data that it actually creates better people. I
Hmm.
wish we had a Marine on to talk about Marine training, and that their severity in that opening training, I bet they would argue, still showed love and still showed belief for this young person to become a full-fledged Marine.
Hmm.
So how can we do that strength and that candor and still show love? That's the challenge.
What are the 35? Wait, was that number three? You're saying number three was
Was
breathing?
breathing. Yeah. Take a breath. If A is a success in life,
Oh,
then A equals X plus Y plus Z.
I love that.
Work is X, Y is
Oh,
play,
on you.
and Z is keeping your mouth shut.
Keeping
Mozart
your
said
mouth
it's not the
shut.
notes, it's the space between the notes.
Wait, the notes, not the notes, the space between them. What does that mean?
So are you musical at all, Jay? You are.
Are you asking me to sing?
I want you to play your tuba.
Someday over the rain. No, I
See,
can't.
you
I,
did match pitch
I
just then,
I
you son
did
of a gun.
choir for about 6 months, and then I think my grades were too low.
God bless you.
Just
So, Jay, if you picked up a piece of sheet
yeah.
music,
Okay.
there'd be notes on it and rests. And the rests and the notes have the same weight. There. So, note, note. And in that silence is a rest. So think about
Wow.
a drummer. Choom, chugga boom, and wait, and boom. That rest has as much weight as the notes. And so, what Secret Weapon 3 is about, Mozart's theory, it's not the notes that makes the music, it's the space between the notes.
Wow. It's
It,
profound.
yeah, Mozart knew what he was doing.
How can we apply that in the context of leadership, mentor mentee dynamics, person in a position of authority and the room, right? This the subordinates is part of your is part of a takeaway from that permission to speak or in the silence or kind of the beginning of our conversation about this having the objective beginning and sandwich kind of thing, not because I'm thinking if I don't have I promise I'll stop talking.
Well, what I just was looking up was it was Jimi Hendrix's 81st birthday this week.
Yeah.
And I found something that he said that I had never heard before. He said, knowledge speaks, but wisdom listens. So what I think happens is you and I could fall prey to blah 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 because we're so smart, and that's knowledge, and it's not that that's bad, but sagacity, wisdom. And I've seen you do this, by the way. I've seen you sit the way you're sitting right now with your hand on your chin, saying absolutely nothing, and then when it was your turn to speak, what you said was 10 times more powerful because instead of sharing knowledge with us, you
Mm,
shared wisdom. Make sense, Jay?
thanks.
Yeah, you're great at that.
How can one, yeah, how do we relay that? How do we relay that knowledge to our audience so that they may be able to ascertain some of this in action, without pain and suffering?
What works for me is to model it first and then tell it later. Many speakers do the opposite and they tell us all the things they're supposed to do. I don't find that valuable for me personally. If I see it in action and then you give it a name later, I have a much bigger aha and it gets in my soul more profoundly.
On that note, pun intended, how can our audience participate in your live interactive experience? Because it's something we've talked about it. Ideally when this thing goes out, I've already physically been a part of this. It seems as though like a mastermind gathering. I want a call to action, right? Like our
Yeah.
audience wants to participate in your I don't want to understate it. Training, I think at a place of refuge that you use, right? Where I've seen people on social media either having fun or they're paid well enough to look it.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, the gathering. Let's do a call to action for that.
Well, my pièce de résistance is I do a 2.5 day retreat up here in southern Maine once a year. And so this year it's going to be in September 2024. So
Ooh,
that is the living, breathing creme de la creme. After that, that's the only thing that I self produce right now. And that may change. Everything else, other people produce for me. So you mentioned Vistage International, which is the largest training of CEOs in the world. They're everywhere in the world, every state in America. So
wow.
you could find a Vistage meeting and ask the chair or ask me if you could be a guest at that. And that certainly would happen. Then many companies call me and say, "Well, you do a half-day workshop for us, do a full-day workshop for us." And then I have a huge base of one-on-one clients. And so everything's at my website. And you know what, Jay, what's free is that people can click on a link and they can hear a message from me every morning that's under 60 seconds. That's me talking about one of the secret weapons in either a creative, funny, or serious way for them to put more giddy up in their step that day.
How long have you been doing those videos every day?
Since COVID, but the voice, what they
Hmm.
are my outgoing voicemail. So
Oh,
I've
that's
been
for
doing a
years,
new,
right?
yeah, I've been doing that for 40 years. So I do a
Four
different outgoing
zero.
40. So Jay, you will never hear the same voicemail twice if you call either
That's
my
over
cell phone
14,600 days.
more because you have to double it because I do it both for my cell phone and for my home office. And they're two different ones. And
Do you
so
know when
what?
you're going to pass 30,000?
I have no
Got to be
idea.
soon. Holy
So what
cow.
my team said was, dude, you've been doing this for so long. We got to video these. These need to go out for the
18.
universe. And I said, okay. And so now I video them and they have more content of these videos
What
and put
advice
more
do you have for
pressure on me.
people that are not as consistent as their idealized projection of themselves would have them believe they need to be?
I find an accountability partner, like a life partner
Yeah.
or a team
Wow.
or a dear friend helps. I find journaling really helpful, Jay. Me personally,
Wow.
I love to write. So I write a journal every day. And so that helps me to be accountable. You know what I find is the obstacle to what you said is people get too avaricious and they say, well, I'm going to do all these things.
Mm.
What's in on my website and in my packet is a checklist. So on the checklist, it says things like, did you give anybody truthful, specific, positive feedback today? That's one of the items.
Wow.
So what I believe is if you do one thing for 30 days, then that becomes a part of your fiber. What doesn't work is if you say, I'm going to do all these 12 different things tomorrow, and that's going to be a regular habit. Pick one thing for 30 days, put it in your muscle, and accomplish it, and away you go.
How have you developed the I guess what ecosystem to be in a position where you're speaking so much so consistently? You're counseling a listener that's in their first year of putting themselves out there in the way that you've done over your career. Yeah, I guess that's a two-parter. How have you done it, and then what would be your advice for the starter?
Step one, make everything you do like your life depended on it. That's secret weapon number 34.
Wow.
Heighten the stakes. Jay, I'm doing this podcast with you right now because I was an outstanding high school drama teacher.
Hmm.
I never said, oh, these are just high school kids. Oh, it's just a rehearsal. Make everything you do, ordering that latte, like your life depended on it. When you're excellent, people see and envision things in you. I'm here because of the generosity of others, that people saw something in me and they hired me to do things that I never thought I could do. When I got my first job to coach a CEO, I'm not lying to you about this, Jay. I had to look up what CEO meant.
Wow.
I did not know what the letter stood for. And I was a high school drama teacher. Then I was a theatrical director. And other people saw that and said, I'm bringing you in to meet our HR team because I'd like you to coach our CEO. And I said, oh, sure, I'd love to do that. Then I looked up CEO.
I'd like to just be very clear about something. You already had something in common with the CEOs because neither did they. I'm here all night. I mean, I'm serious about this one. It just
Buy
so
the
happens,
meal.
yeah, it just so happens to be funny, but it's the truth.
You're so
Yeah,
great. But
yeah.
that's number one. And then I can't stress enough. There's nothing about believing that you have giddy up in your step. And so when you have a life partner that really believes in you
Yeah.
and tells you every day why they believe in you, man, does that help. And when you surround yourself by those people, when you surround yourself by people who tell you how awful you are, it's very hard to do the trajectory that I did. So that
Mm.
I'd put number two. And so how do you build that confidence? How and then three, I sing and dance and gather beauty all day. And when you sing and dance and gather beauty all day, you go to another place where magic is able to happen in your life.
In closing, this will be the last thing that our listener ever listens to in their life. They don't know that, but this will be it. What do you say to them?
The little things,
What's your advice?
the little things
Oh,
are not
shit.
so
It's like I
little.
didn't even hear you. That's how
Right. The little
detached.
things are not so little. Don't be afraid of doing a little thing. Don't be afraid of being that person that pays for the toll for the person behind you in the booth. Don't be afraid of buying the cup of coffee for the person behind you standing in the Dunkin' line. Don't be afraid of telling the person on the airplane next to you how much you enjoy the way they dress, the way they spoke to the flight attendant. Start assembling little things every day and go make a difference. Go make a difference if you can. I love you, love you, love you. I love you, Jay Doran. Go make a difference.
You might take that back when you hear what I was thinking. Is he about to say cut in line?
Try the meal.
Oh, we'll see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast.